Your family, were they super supportive, as you mentioned? I think your dad has a quote there that says, like, if you love what you do, you will make money.
Yeah, he would say that to me,
Mhm.
and he he was always very supportive. I mean, when I was in high school and I was thinking of applying to art schools, he was telling me that I should and that I could do it, and he would say, you might have to work harder than everybody else, but you can do it, and if you work hard, the money will come. That's basically how he phrased it to me.
Mhm.
And then there were times where when I was really, in the very beginning, it's a real struggle trying to become a professional artist. There were times where I was really down and I thought, this is never going to happen. And instead of kind of saying to me, well, not everybody can be an artist. Why don't you go to law school and you can paint on the weekends? He would say, he'd pick me up and he'd say, you can do it. You can do it. I know that you can do it. You just need to, you need to buckle down and work and make it happen. And my mom was just as supportive too. So I was really lucky. So the ideas come from all over the place. They can be concepts that I'm interested in, or abstract visual problems that I'm interested in solving, problems of light and color and composition. They can be literal, places that I've been or that I've wanted to go that sort of stand for something for me. They can be something, the idea can be something that I couldn't possibly explain. There's plenty of ideas that I can't explain why I'm interested in them, but I can paint them. And once I've got a decent idea, then what I'll usually try and do is go to the spot, draw, paint. Sometimes I take notes into my phone. Sometimes I write notes in my sketchbook. I'll take pictures. If I can do the painting on the spot, then I will. Now, most of the time I can't because I like lighting conditions that I like sunrise and sunset. The hour before sunset, the hour after sunset. And I have little kids, and I pretty much need to be home at sunrise and sunset. Not all the time. I could take a couple nights here and there. But if I want to put a lot of time into something, and I like putting a lot of time into my paintings, I can't really paint them on the spot. I'm interested in urban areas where there may not be parking anywhere near it. So the real world sort of impedes my creative process, and I need to find a way around it. So the way that I operate is that I try to amass as much information as possible from life, not just to rely on photographs, but do little paintings, do sketches, and let the idea kind of marinate until I really come up with something that I think is the best that it can be. And then most of the paintings of mine that people see, not all of them, but most of them I paint in my studio. I do a lot of painting, as we say, at plein air, on site,
Mhm.
but those are usually smaller paintings. I don't paint a lot bigger than most of my paintings are pretty small on site. So if I want to do something large with a lot of that I can put a lot of work into, that's what I do. But it's the dreaming up the idea and letting it marinate that I really enjoy. And sometimes some of these ideas just come to me like that, and then I can get started. And others I have to play with and sort of turn over in my head for weeks or months or years. And I love that part of the process. So that's how I go about it. The painting it is really the easy part. It's the idea that's the hard part for me.
I want to go back a little bit there and maybe explain because a lot of the patient survivors and people in general that maybe are watching this are not artists. So we're going to go with a few concepts so they understand. First of all, you follow the plein air technique, which is meaning to paint outside, just like the Impressionism did back in Paris. And the part that you probably enjoy is how you capture light.
I love that. And there are elements like that, visual elements that I'm really interested in, and that's one, and color's another, and depicting space, depth is
Mm.
another, how far away you can make things look from each other. And another is design, what to emphasize and what to de-emphasize, what I notice and what I want the viewer to notice, and then what I don't want the viewer to notice. And I've often said that there are areas within a painting that if somebody owns it for their entire life, I hope they never look at. I hope they never notice this because they're too busy looking at this. So all of those are elements that I'm really interested in. Well, I find portraiture fascinating because I find people fascinating, and it's sort of a portrait is really a collaboration with the sitter. On the one hand, to learn about them and to learn about what aspects of their life um, I want to not only highlight, but what sort of human elements I want the painting to stand for. It's not just that I want to show who the person is, it's that I want the painting to really stand for something and to exude certain traits, that can essentially inspire the viewer. And so I'll want to learn as much about the person as possible and get a sense of just what they're interested in and how they've spent their life and maybe some of the things that they sort of take pride in. Um, and then I get to also decide what I think is interesting about them. So, they're whether it's things they've done with their life or just even a feeling that they might exude, I'll try and kind of highlight certain things about them, and it may just be something as open as say positivity or kindness or optimism, or it may be something more specific involving their career and sort of philosophies that they might have. But everything from the look on their face to their posture to the props in the painting to the just overall light and color and feel of it is something that can really touch the viewer, and that's what I'm really interested in. That's how I usually do it. Most people don't have the time or the inclination to pose for it completely. But if I can get an hour or two to do a quick painting, what's called a color study, really where you're just getting the color of their skin and maybe their tie or the background or whatever it is. And then maybe a sketch to just get familiar with their face and sort of with photos are flat and stiff, but people's faces move and they take on expression. And even if I can spend an hour just sort of examining them very closely and see the way their face moves and the way to get to know their personality, I find that very beneficial. So if I can do a little bit of sketching, take a number of photographs, and then I'll usually take my favorite photos, the ones that I think will work best for the portrait. So the expression on the person's face, and then show it to the person and anybody else involved in the decision. So perhaps the person's spouse, and then maybe if there are people involved for their job, like curators or anything like that, just so they can choose their favorite expression. I mean, we've all seen pictures of ourselves that we don't love, and I don't want to ever disappoint somebody if I'm painting their portrait. I'm not always. I mean, I paint plenty of paintings of people and plenty of portraits um, that aren't necessarily supposed to flatter them. But if I'm painting a commissioned portrait of somebody, usually I want to depict them sort of on the greatest day of their life. So I'll show them the photos that I think will work best, and they'll gravitate to one or to a group of them. And then sometimes, if I'm doing something that's a little unconventional, sometimes I'll say to the person, "I have this idea. You know, it might sound crazy at first, but maybe we do this, that, and the other thing." If they're a little bit hesitant about it, I might do a finished charcoal sketch that's rendered completely to show them
Mhm.
so that they can see what they're getting, because I don't want people to be disappointed when they look at my portrait. And and then they might say, "Oh, I understand what you're talking about. Okay, let's do it." So that's how I do it. And then I'll do the painting in my studio, usually from all of those things, from the sketches and everything, but also from lots of photos, not just one photo. I wish I could do it just from one photograph. It'd be so much easier, but it's usually one of their face, one of their posture, a different one of their hands, one of them in with the background, and so forth.
Portraits are very demanding, and I think that it's even more because, as you mentioned, many times we look at a picture of ourselves and we don't like it,
Right.
and so and it's like, well, that's you. But so it's very demanding. I remember one of my art teachers used to say, portraits are hard. Anything else is great because if you don't have a face and you don't have hands, there's no problem. And
Right.
that is absolutely right. So I totally admire. Now, your portraits are in very high places. They are part of a collection of the Capitol Hill. You have done a portrait of the governor of Virginia, I
That's
believe,
right.
congressmen. And so your artwork is in public and private collections. So that is, you are such a talented artist.
That's
And
very kind. Thank you
combining
very much.
those two like portraits, which I think that, how would you describe your style with portraits? Because I see it like very, like it's more traditional.